And we welcome you to the Mangia Cast as we get you ready for the 2025 NFL Draft. We got a great guest for you, Chad Reuter, NFL.com. He's the guy that I stumbled upon years ago. He actually puts out a 7-round mock draft, which is off the charts. Bob Papa, Chris Bizignano, Giant Insider Newspaper Podcast. First of all, my friend, we got to show everybody what we got. Chin Chin.
Chin Chin Mangia Cast.
We got the Chin Chin Mangia Cast glass.
Yeah.
And
Chin,
you could
by the way, Chin, my friend.
Chin. What do you got tonight? I got Dow.
No, I got the Dow. I got another bottle of Dow. I've been running with the Dow.
We got to get Dow as a sponsor.
I also have Pop. Yeah, we're gonna get Dow, definitely. I also have a little what we used to call back in the day black coffee back in Brooklyn.
Yeah,
I know New Jersey people say espresso.
No, as my mom still says it.
Well, your mom and dad are real Italian. They say it because they're real Italians. Okay, so look, we got some.
Hold it before you get into anything. The glass. Our viewers, our listeners can go to the Believe shop and order your Chin Chin Mangia Cast wine glass. It's in the description on YouTube. Go to the Believe shop and get yourself a Mangia Cast wine glass. And make sure you subscribe and leave comments.
Absolutely. Absolutely. These are beautiful glasses. Great job.
Now,
I love it, Pop. I love these glasses, bro. I love it. It came out great. Go ahead.
You know what I made tonight? A little pasta. Little pasta. So on Christmas Eve, aioia. You know, you eat
aioia.
But I did it the way my family does it, and I'm going to show you how to make it. You know, I was in New Jersey today, and I flew back, so this is something I could whip up pretty quickly. But you're excited about this draft, aren't you?
I'm excited, Pop. First off, I'm excited that we're only 23 hours away. Because it's so intriguing, man. I think it's safe to assume we know what's going to happen the first 2 picks, but then the draft's going to start with the Giants. What do they do at number 3? And we'll get into it with Chad, obviously, but if they go the direction I think they're going to go, and I think you think they're going to go, and that's Abdul Carter, where the hell does Shedeur Sanders wind up? I think you're going to see a couple teams trying to trade up back into the first round.
I agree.
I think it's going to be a very, very fascinating draft. Bob, last year I remember the Giants had the 6th overall pick. They went with Malik, obviously, and we met with Shane like a half hour later and Dable, and we said to Joe, "All right, Joe," because obviously it's early in the night, 6th pick. "All right, Joe, are we out of here? Can we go home?" And Joe was like, yeah, you guys could kind of take off, right? Well, this year it's the 3rd pick. We're going to do the same thing. And I have a feeling Joe's not going to say, yeah, you could go home. I think there's going to be a lot. There's a few teams that I think are going to try to get back into that first round to look for what they need. So I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to have Chad on, Pop. And nobody knows this stuff better than him, man. It's going to be a fascinating night tomorrow night.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And Chad does the 7-round mock draft for NFL.com. He's going to join us here on the program. And again, if you're checking us out on Twitter, go to our YouTube channel, subscribe, and then order yourself a Mangia Cast Chin Chin wine glass as part of the fun. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform, your number one source for all of your sports betting action. Baseball's in full swing. Yankees and Mets both won today. And we're in the home stretch of the NBA, NHL playoffs. You want to stay in on all the action, latest odds, news, scores, live in-game betting. Largest selection of odds on everything from MLB, NHL, UFC. BetOnline remains the number one source for all of your sports wagering information. In between games, you go to the BetOnline casino. All the top Vegas-style games, poker, live casino. BetOnline, the game starts here. So, Lynn, is Chad back and loaded and ready to go? I believe Chad is ready to go. Yeah. So let's welcome in Chad Reuter, NFL.com. Every year he puts out a 7-round mock draft. It's been one of my must-to reads, even when he starts putting them out in installments. Chad, we appreciate you joining us here on the Mangia Cast. Now, before we get into draft stuff, what's your favorite Italian dish?
Oh boy. The one that's put in front of me. How about that? I'm not picky. There's a place in Madison. It used to be in Madison, one of my favorite restaurants called Paisans. Okay. And they had a spicy meatball sandwich. And I could look at that menu for an hour and I'd still go back to the spicy meatball sandwich every time. So that tugs at my heart to think about that a little bit. And it makes me sad it's not there anymore.
Well, I've taught Phil Sims how to make a carbonara on this show. I made a cacio pepe with Mike Garofalo. We made homemade pizza, chicken parm, chicken piccata. Tonight, I made a Christmas Eve special, aglio olio. I just whipped it up, and we've got video of me making it. So I'm going to share that with the audience a little bit later on. Now, I will say this. Biz, have you ever had walleye?
Once a long time ago, but not in a long time.
So one of my treats of going to Madison, Wisconsin, working the American Family Insurance Championship, Steve Stricker hosts the event. And they have this celebrity event on Saturday where last year it was Jordan Love was there. They've had Favre. They've had Derek Jeter. He's an American Family Ambassador. And Andy North. And Andy North took us to this restaurant on the water. And he's like, you got to have the walleye.
Mm-hmm.
And when I tell you, Biz, because the tournament's in June. So It's like the perfect time to be in Madison. The perfect time to be in Madison, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
The walleye is something that once you try it, you will look for it on any menu that you can find it.
How was it made, Pop? Do you remember? How did he do? What was different about it?
It was like
it was just broiled. Was it broiled? Okay.
It was broiled.
Yeah.
Chad, how do you like your walleye? You could have it fried too. It's
I mean, I've had it fried many times. Broiled is fantastic. And I love walleye, but my favorite is actually a little lake fish called bluegills. And when you fry those babies up and they're done right, melt in your mouth. So good. But yeah, walleye is definitely something you got to try when you come here to Minnesota or something like that, because when it's fresh, it's fantastic.
Now, Biz, I don't think you've ever been to Madison, Wisconsin.
No.
Maybe Madison, New Jersey.
No.
Jerry Kelly. Jerry. Every year we go to Jerry Kelly's house. He's got this house on the water, and he's got this basement that's got a full area in which he can hit golf balls. He's got clubs from when he first started, a lot of wood drivers, a whole practice area, simulator. Other part of the basement, he's got ping pong tables, pool tables, and then he's got another part of the basement that you can play like goalie and hockey, and it's big enough. He's got sticks, and it overlooks the lake. And it is as spectacular. Madison, Wisconsin, at least when I've been there in June, is breathtaking.
I better get an invite next time you're in town. I'm just saying that right now because it sounds like you do some pretty cool stuff. So
yeah, it's
give me a shot.
Place to be.
Yeah.
All right, you do cool stuff because I became a fan of yours. I can't remember how long ago, but I stumbled upon you because listen, I'm not going to knock your employer because they used to be my employer, but we know they push certain guys up a lot. So I had to find yours. I stumbled upon it one year. And you do this 7-round mock draft. Now, you told us before the show you're already working on next year's mock draft. How do you streamline all of this?
Well, I'm not working on the mock draft yet. No, I'm just starting my list of gathering information on players. That's one of my main jobs with NFL media is to get the process. I'm sort of an advanced scout, you could think of it. I'm gathering information so that when the fall comes, I can send out a bunch of information to people and say, hey, here are some guys to be watching this year. Here's what they've done so far in their career, that kind of stuff. Thankfully, we don't touch any mock drafts until after the underclassmen have declared officially in January. Yeah, no, I'm very happy not to be doing a 2026 mock draft right after the event. But I am excited. I'm always excited to see the new guys or the guys that were held over from last year. There's like 400 guys that I wrote up for last year that are going to come back, whether they're underclassmen or had been injured once after their part of the COVID class, but they had a year where they're lost to injury, or some of the guys that are junior college players and now get an extra year of eligibility after Vanderbilt quarterback Diego Pavia sued the NCAA for the right to get some additional eligibility. So there's more carryover again this year, and well, next year's college football season is going to be great. So
Chad, first off, I have enough problems doing a first round mock.
yeah.
How the hell you do 7 rounds is beyond me. But we're 23 hours away, Chad, from the big one tomorrow night. I guess it's safe to assume we know who the first 2 is going to go now. Obviously, looks like Cam Ward, and it looks like Travis. It looks like the Browns and Andrew Berry are hot on Travis Hunter. So the big question is going to be, Chad, who does Joe Shane and the Giants go with at number 3? And I'm going to ask you, I think they're going Abdul Carter. If they do not go Shedeur Sanders, where do you have him going? How far do you have him dropping?
Right now, in the 7 round mock, I had him going to the Raiders at 6, and I think Mark Davis, is a name guy. We know he talks to Dion, on occasion, and maybe about a head coaching job, maybe at one point, before they hired Pete Carroll. And another thing is Tom Brady is a minority stake owner in the team. He has Mark Davis's ear. He's worked with Shedeur on and off the field for years.
Right. That's a
Shadeur's
great
been a
connection.
professional quarterback since he was 15, 16 years old, it seems like. I mean, he's grown up in the spotlight. And they went and they got Geno Smith, and they signed him to a deal, but teams don't finish those deals. My guess is that he'll play for a year or two. And if he stays healthy, he'll play that. But I think getting Sanders in and letting him get a little experience working with Geno, who a lot of people kind of compare those two anyway. It's sort of an interesting fit.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a great place for him to land. If he doesn't go there, then it's the Saints at 9. And if he's not there, then Katie bar the door. Who knows? This is an Aaron Rodgers situation kind of waiting to happen. But for now, I'll stick with Sanders at 6. And, we'll see what go from there. Because the other thing is, who are the Raiders going to take if Ashton Genty's gone? There's no corners that are really worthy of that pick once Travis Hunter's off the board. Will Johnson's just not fast enough to be a top 10 pick, probably. They don't need a tight end. Tyler Warren would have been a good pick otherwise. Maybe John Walker. I don't know. I just think at that spot, it makes a lot of sense for me for them to take Sanders.
So if they do take Sanders, do you think that Jackson Dart goes to the Saints based on the Carr information?
Yeah, I think so. Well, and frankly, I was going to put him there even before that. Because, nobody thought, after last season, oh, Derek Carr is the answer at quarterback for the Saints for the next 4 years. Nobody thought that. And so it was pretty clear that they were going to look at somebody at some point in this draft. I think, again, the Saints are in a position where, yes, they could take an offensive lineman. They could read, again, Will Johnson at corner would have maybe made sense for them. But if you got a chance to get your future quarterback, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, I agree. I'm sticking with my dart to New Orleans too. Chad, how many quarterbacks I guess you had 3 going in his first round?
That's right. And
Dart.
Jalen Milroe going like the first pick of the second round.
Which in this case would be the Cleveland Browns.
So Cleveland Browns, yeah.
So you have Jalen going in the first pick of the second round. Interesting. Chad, do you see a team like the Giants trying to trade up back into the first round to maybe land a Milroe or a Dart? If Jackson doesn't go to New Orleans at 9.
Right. Yeah, that's a possibility. Like, it would be interesting to see if they pull off a Giants Commanders trade, because the Commanders might try to go back and and get some more picks. So it's possible. We don't get those trades a lot. They happen sometimes when a team will go back. It hasn't happened a lot for quarterbacks recently. I think the last time was Lamar Jackson. So that turned out pretty well for the Ravens, although they used a few picks earlier on Hayden Hurst, which that still doesn't make sense to me why they didn't just take Lamar at that pick. But anyway, so it is possible that that happens. I don't know that Milrow or Tyler Shook or Quinn Ewers have first round grades from teams, and I'm not sure that any of them are graded so highly above the others that a team will need to trade up for one if they're willing to take Shook if Milrow is gone or something like that. So I don't anticipate that move right now, but it's certainly possible.
So it looks like the Giants will probably take Abdul Carter.
Yeah.
How do you grade him? What's your thought on him? Is it, when you put your boards together and you're ranking players before
Yeah.
you do your mock draft, is Hunter head and shoulders above Carter as far as a grade in your opinion?
Head, shoulders, torso, maybe to knees above. No, and that's not a rip on Carter at all. I just Hunter's a unicorn. But Carter would definitely be the next on that board. I love Mason Graham. I think he's a fantastic defender, and I don't know that people understand how good he really is. And so I think they're closer in value than some people think. And Ashton Genty is right in that conversation as well. So I think it's Hunter, then Ward and Carter and Graham and Genty are kind of the elite players, I think.
Any surprises in the top 10, Chad, that you think might happen?
Well, I think it's possible Will Campbell, depending if what happens with the quarterbacks, it's possible Will Campbell goes a little higher, even though he's probably not fat. Like if he would have run a 40 at his pro day, it probably would have been 4.58 or something like that. But some of these teams in the top 10 are big zone teams. And that's really where he excels, reading things in front of him, very good ball skills, good tackler. So maybe the Saints take a chance on him at 9. That's possible. Tyler Warren could go as high as 6 or not 6, 7 to the Jets. That's another thing to watch for. I really think we pretty much know. I think the top 10 is just the order in which they go is going to be a little. We're not sure of. Is Will Campbell really going to go 4 to the Patriots? Is he really that kind of player? I don't know that he is. He's not a Joe Thomas type guy to me. Solid player, good player. Um, and the one thing though is funny. So everybody's heard about Will Campbell's arm length. One thing that isn't talked about as much though is his narrow base, his narrow shoulders, which is a problem when you have narrow shoulders and shorter arms. Guys are going to be able to get around you a little. Didn't have the problem much at LSU, but it's a whole nother category now, right? And I don't think he's a top 5 pair, but Mike Vrabel, new Patriots coach, he had a guy with similar measurements in Taylor Lewan, and he was a heck of a player. He went 11th, and partially because of those measurements. Now, I think Lewan was a much better finisher than Campbell is, but maybe that's a connection that Vrabel makes if he doesn't like the Ashton Genty, Derrick Henry comparison that I put in the mock.
Or
So-
maybe they wind up trading back a couple spots for one of these quarterback hungry teams. When I hear about this offensive lineman from LSU, you know what keeps pinging in my head? Justin Pugh.
Yeah.
The arms are not that he can't be a good player and have a long career.
Yeah.
But if you're going to take a guy at 4, like he better be
Yeah.
like lock, stock, barrel, potentially future Pro Bowl consistent left tackle for you.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear that. Well, he moved to guard and he was really good. Yeah, that's
Right.
nice, but you could have traded back and taken him to do that.
He reminds me of Robert Gallery a little bit coming out of Iowa, who went number 2 overall and was an okay guard, but that's not it. So in terms of number 2 pick, and that's why I have them going Genty at 4 rather than one of the offensive tackles, even though they really need an offensive tackle. I just think the value in Genty is better. And honestly, it's funny. Like I've not projected any top 10 trades in any of my mock drafts because I don't see it happening.
Right.
This has been happening regularly now that teams are not making these trades in the top 10 unless they're like a month before the draft. And it's possible. And the one guy I think that could be the target is Genty. If he makes it past the Patriots at 4, and the Giants don't go way off the board and go Genty because they missed Saquon after what he just did with the Eagles. If he's sitting there at 5 and Jacksonville's sitting there and teams are calling the Bears, the 49ers, the Cowboys, that could be a spot where teams could go because he's going to 6 to the Raiders if he's Pete Carroll's not going to pass that guy up. He's just not. So that could be the interesting trade that happens.
The other tackle whose stock has skyrocketed the last month is Membo.
Yeah.
Am I saying that? I think I'm saying that right. Membo, right, Chad?
Membu.
Membu. Okay.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
It's almost like he's Italian. Membu.
Yeah, he's close. Yeah. Boo. Hey, boo. So, hey, Chad, I got him going to the 7 to the Jets. How do you grade Will Campbell and him? You have Campbell ahead of him?
I think if you're looking for a left tackle, yes. If you're looking for a guard or a right tackle, then I'd go Membu. And Membu, they could play him at left tackle. It's funny, like he never started there, but 5 or 6 times a game, Missouri would actually play him at tight end next to their left tackle. And he looked natural enough there. He took on some pretty good pass rushers, so I think he could play there. But I think he's a little raw, little unpolished yet. Good finisher. He sort of reminds me of Ike Ekwonu, which is not a great comparison right now.
Yeah, I was going
But
to say, yeah.
teams do fall in love with these guys that are wide bodies, even though he's not the tallest guy, wide bodies, athletic finisher guys. And that's why the Jets very well could take him at 7. Even the Patriots at 4 is not out of the realm. I mean, Vrabel, when he was at Tennessee, they picked J.C. Latham, and a lot of people didn't think they'd take him that high, once Joe Alt was off the board. So that's a possibility too. But I think he's a little raw, and if you pick him that high, there's certainly a risk factor involved, I think. So I don't have either of them, Campbell or Membu, rated as, elite tackle prospects.
Sal Fada, salute. He wants Abdul Carter for the Giants. I think that's reasonable probability. Chad, I want to ask you this question about the Jets.
I don't have wine, but I'll do the Sprite. How about that?
All right.
That's okay. Next time, Chad.
Yeah. Was not prepared.
Chad, you mentioned that you could see the Raiders taking Shedeur. Pete Carroll spent a lot of money at that time to bring Matt Flynn in. And they drafted Russell Wilson in the 3rd round, and he had a legitimate open competition.
Yep.
And Russell Wilson beat him out. The rest, as they say, is history. So I can see your thinking behind all this. The Jets have been very quiet. New GM, new head coach. Maybe the owner is staying out of the way, at least for the time being.
Do you think?
Maybe.
I think it seems to be. It seems to be, Chad. I mean, maybe he learned his lesson, but who knows?
So let me ask you this, Chad. If the Raiders traded for Geno Smith because Pete had a relationship with him and Geno played his best ball with Pete as head coach, why wouldn't the Jets at this point pounce on a quarterback? Is that a wild card possibly in this draft? Because Justin Fields the bottom line is Justin Fields is on his 3rd team already.
Yeah.
So he can't be that impressive.
On my 5-round mock, I had the Jets taking Jackson Dart, and I still think that's a possibility for the exact reason you just said. And in fact, my lead in that article was all the times where teams have signed a guy for 2 years, $20 million, and then all of a sudden they pick a guy in the top 10. Kirk Cousins, 4 years, $180 million. Let's take Michael Penix at 8. It happens regularly. And that's still a possibility. I didn't stick with it this time. I had them picking a quarterback a little bit later. So we'll see if I regret that or not. But no, that's a legitimate possibility, I think. And look, Rick Spielman, who's been working with the Jets, he talked about him at the Senior Bowl. Like he has good football character. Dart has the physical characteristics you want. Um, he's a guy that just looks like a guy that gets picked in the top 10. We've seen it many, many times. So we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, you're right. The Jets are legitimate, have a legitimate chance of taking him at 7.
Chad, who's a few guys that are projected to go high that might drop, and who's a few guys that are projected to go lower that might go higher, in your opinion?
Guys that could fall. Well, let's see. Ted McMillan's kind of already falling in many people's eyes, I guess, at this point. But
Why is that, Chad? Just quickly, why does he seem to be dropping?
Because he's a big receiver, but he's not overly physical. He's not overly fast. He's just not elite in any one category. Now, could I see the Cowboys taking him at 12? Yes. They had interest in DK Metcalf and for trade, so they could use him. So he could definitely go 12. But to me, like Seattle at 18 would be a good spot for him. Again, with the Metcalf trade, that makes a lot of sense if they went that way. Green Bay might have interest at some point in the first round. In terms of guys that might go a little lower, people were projecting Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M, the edge rusher, as a top 10 guy, as a top 12 guy. I never really bought that. The highest I think he would go would be like Cincinnati at 17 at the highest, but I think in the end he's a guy that you pick in the 20s. Just as the production. I mean, people will always say yes, 4.5 sacks in 3 years is not what you want from an edge rusher, which is true. But the reason is because his change of direction isn't elite. And if he's playing 5 technique, he's fine. Now, if he's out on the edge, I don't know that works great. His new team will have to work with him on that and see what they can do. But explosive off the ball, really strong run defender. There's some things to like about him, but he should probably go in the 20s and not in the teens. A guy that probably should go higher that won't is Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle from Ole Miss. He should be a top 15 pick all day, but he won't be probably. The same questions you hear every year about some defensive tackle work ethic and blah, 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 blah. So all the Eagles are going to do is trade up and get him, put him in for Milton Williams, and they're going to continue to have the best front four in football. And people will be like, how did Walter Nolan fall to them? That's just what's going to happen. And so I think he'll go in the 20s somewhere, and Howie Roseman will do his magic, and he'll get him, and he'll be, that's the way it's going to be. Sorry.
Well, I mean, listen, if his last name is Nolan, Howie's going to take him, and he's going to be successful because he took Nolan Smith, and that worked out pretty good when it dropped. Hey, I want to just encourage all of our listeners and viewers right there on YouTube. If you want to ask Chad a question, leave it in the comments. Again, subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you want to order the Mangia Cast wine glass, Chin Chin, just go to BelieveShop.com, shop.believe.com, and get yourself a little Chin Chin. Chad, so the 7-round mock draft, let's go broader here.
Yeah.
I really love, you were on my Sirius XM NFL radio show, and I really loved your explanation because people are sitting there going like, what is this guy throwing darts against the wall? How does he know? How are you even coming up with 5th and 6th and even 4th, 7th round picks? Describe your methodology in how you go about placing players with teams and what you use as criteria, because I think it's fascinating.
Well, the first thing I do, a lot of people, when you're doing a mock draft, I think people just think, okay, you go one pick at a time, and then you just pick the guy who meets a need for that particular team, and you go through all 257 picks. And I think what I try to do first is set players in tiers, top 25, top 50, top 100, that kind of thing. So I get all the players that should be drafted in a particular area of the draft in the right spot. And then once I do that, then I can kind of determine, okay, what teams have really primary needs that they have to address early, And then but most teams have 3 or 4 areas that they can improve on, and they can take the best value of the players in that tier of talent. This isn't grocery shopping where you go to aisle 1, get the wide receiver you need, go to aisle 2 and get the running back. I mean, you can't do it that way because you get into trouble reaching for guys. And so I kind of go through that process. And then later in the draft, obviously the tiers of talent are a day 3 pick is a day 3 pick sort of. And so then you have to kind of take a look at some of the stronger positions, maybe, some of the tight ends, are going to go off in round 4. Some of the running backs, are going to go off in round 4, even though teams may not have running back as one of their top 4 needs. Some teams always picking a team like last year, the Packers picked Marshawn Lloyd in the 3rd round, even though they had, a couple of guys. They'd signed Josh Jacobs and they had AJ Dillon back. And so you kind of have to look for that kind of stuff too. But and then 6 and 7, what you're really doing is you're looking at teams that might need a couple players at a certain position. A team might, like, for example, Baltimore doesn't have much depth on the defensive line right now. So you might look at them taking a second defensive tackle. Or it's a lot of special teams guys. Where are the punters going? Where are the kickers going? Where are the safeties that run fast and hit hard? Where would they fit in on an NFL roster?
And
So you're just kind of
returners
filling
now,
those
because
guys.
of this kickoff rule being massaged a little bit with the touchback
Yeah.
coming to the 35, we're going to see more returns.
Yeah, and so it's really that's kind of how, and you're also looking for some teams might need a second receiver, and maybe they got their slot guy early in the draft, so now they need a bigger guy who can get downfield. You're looking for that speed guy who maybe isn't the best route runner. You can, get him in round 6 or 5 or something like that. So just trying to play around with the different teams' needs and keeping players within certain value and just kind of making fed teams have certain types of players, especially if the administration's been there for a hot minute. You can kind of see the guys that they like, so you just try to see if you can guess that they like certain guys. And, there are reports out about guys being brought in for what they call top 30 visits, even though they're not top 30, but visits to the facility and who they talk with at the combine and things like that too, to kind of get a sense of the type of player they're looking for.
Just Biz, before you go, so
Yeah,
like,
no, no.
so you're kind of looking too, like the Patriots, and you're looking at Vrabel. What was his MO in Tennessee? Because I'm going to try to match with Vrabel in the 5th round or the 6th round based on team need, but also what kind of player does Vrabel like?
Yeah.
So you're gonna match that player with him, right? That is that
Well,
part of how you do it?
kind of, but you have to remember that he was with John Robinson, there as the GM, and now he's got Elliot Wolf, and so they're going to approach things differently too. So it's not that easy, but you get a sense that Mike Vrabel is going to go nonsense guys. I mean, you get a sense of that, but it's not quite as easy as the head coach, what the head coach likes, because the GM should really be making the calls most of the time anyway in a collaborative, a relationship.
Chad, what position group in this draft you could go into the 3rd round, 4th round, and still get a real quality player that say, hey, you know what? This kid could start for us here on day 1.
Yeah, defensive
High and
tackle
tight.
for sure.
What, Pop?
It's going high and tight. I'm saying running back.
Running back.
Oh yeah, that
What'd you
too.
say? I'm sorry, Chad. What'd you say? Defensive tackle?
Defensive tackle is the first
Okay.
group I would say, because, like, for example, this year at the combine, I think there was 39 invited, and there's usually more like 28, 29. It's a very deep group. And there's a lot of different types of defensive tackles nowadays in terms of guys that can be inside outside. They're nose tackles. I mean, there's a lot of different things that teams are looking for. But it's a really deep group. So you're going to get starters 3rd, 4th, 5th round, and you're going to get even the 6th and 7th round. You're going to get rotational guys to play against the run. And then the second group would be running back, because, again, we're going to have 15 of them taken on day 3. There's going to be guys that step in immediately. Like Devin Neal from Kansas is a really good running back. He may go in the 6th round because he's not like the super athlete guy. But he's really fantastic back, and those are the kind of guys that are going to be available later. And teams, you kind of wonder, well, how did he last this long? Just the number of guys that are going to get picked. It's they're going to be there's going to be some bargains.
All right, Biz, let me just follow up here.
Good.
So, Chad, I brought this up to Charles Davis on the Believe in Giants podcast. We had him on as a guest last week. And I said, is this running back class deeper than the past couple of years, or is it because what Saquon Barkley did, people are paying more attention to the running back class? Your thoughts?
I think it's deeper. I think teams for the last year, maybe even last year, were really you saw a shift in teams being willing to run more because of fewer people in the box and lighter linebackers. You can get your offensive lineman in the second level against those guys. You can have a lot of success. And so I think the Aston Genty surely is going to make some money off the fact that Barkley had a great year. But I think that overall teams are already kind of going the direction of making sure that you have a couple of quality backs. One, because of injuries, and then two, because you can wear teams down. And this is why some rookies like Neal would be a great example of a guy that comes onto a team, probably gets a ton of red zone carries and drives fantasy owners nuts. But that's what you do when you want your main back not to get beat up in tight quarters. You give this other guy a shot to punch it in.
Speaking of beating people up, Chad, where do you have Scatterbo going?
I think he's got a chance to go top 100, but there are certainly some questions. I mean, look, you watch him in his highlight runs, and he just plows through people. He's so thick in the lower body, it's very tough to tackle. But fact is, he's not super fast, and he's not going to be able to elude NFL tacklers as easily as he did college guys.
Or run them over.
Yeah, well, there's some guys that are going to have something to say about that too.
Right. He's not going to be able to do it in the NFL.
Yeah,
Some 20-something-year-old kid is not running into the line of scrimmage and dealing with pick your top inside guys.
Yeah.
He ain't running Dexter Lawrence over. He's not running over.
Yeah.
Chris
you know what I'm
Jones,
saying.
the guys like that. Yeah.
And even the linebackers will be coming downhill at him. But the thing is he's got enough agility, he's got enough pass catching ability. His issue at Arizona State was stamina. But if you can get him into a game 12 carries, and you're part of a rotation, he could be pretty effective. And
could he be a huge check kind of guy where like you can run him, you can throw it to him, and you have packages for him, and he can be.
I wouldn't have him blocking anybody, but I mean, I think in general you're right in terms of he might be more of a specialist, even though he's 230 some pounds. Like Jalen Warren has kind of made a career out of that with the Steelers, right? I mean, he's not the main guy, but he's pretty effective when he's in there. And so that's the kind of thing I could see. I wouldn't take him until like round 5 myself, but I could see a team kind of falling for him in late in the 3rd round, early in the 4th round, something like that.
Chad, the Giants go into this draft with Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary in their running back room.
Well, okay? Don't leave Eric Gray out, bro.
Pop's breaking my chops. So, and Eric Gray, okay? But I know where Pop's going with that one. How about the Giants, Chad? My opinion, they're going to address the running back room in this draft.
Yeah.
Do you see that? And what roundabout, where do you see they might go with a running back?
Yeah, I actually had them taking Scatterbo in round 3, or at the end of round 3.
Okay.
So that's kind of the area where I thought somebody might take him. Just because, again, even though he's 230 pounds, he's not super fast. He's a little more agile. You can ask him to do a few things. So I think somewhere in that part of the draft. But to be honest with you, like they have so many choices on day 3 too. And again, the mocks aren't just what I think about players, although my bias certainly comes into play. But I have to take a guess at what teams are gonna think about guys, and so I think in rounds 4 or 5 they have so many choices. And I was half joking before about them taking Genty at 3. But I tell you what, that dude is really good. And if they took him at 3, my shocked face would be more like,
Okay.
that would be my
Chad.
shocked face.
Chad, as you know, Bob is the voice of the Giants. I cover the Giants. Chad, if they went running back at 3, the fans would go out of their friggin' minds.
Well,
So
I mean,
understand
if Shane goes up to the podium, all he needs to say, okay, everybody go to YouTube, watch Saquon Barkley Eagles, and we'll see him holding a Lombardi trophy.
But Chad,
and be like,
Chad, go ahead. I totally get what you're saying, bro.
He can't,
but they don't have the Eagles' offensive line either. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but so with a bad offensive line, Saquon won the NFL's Offensive Rookie of the Year, and he had over 2,000 combined. Like Saquon's had success,
but it's a possibility, and it would be so great.
Chad, listen,
Biz,
Pop, Chad, Saquon's a dynamic talent, but they're not going running back at 3. No way.
Yeah, I know.
Well, what would the fans' reaction be, Bob?
I also, this is just me, and I'm not Chad. Chad studies this more than I do, but to me, Genty does not. Saquon had an unbelievable it factor when you watched him.
Yeah,
and although and he did it in the Big Ten, which counts. Because I did my serious show with Robert Turbin a week ago, and I asked him, and he found a lot of things about Genty running style, his route running, that he didn't like, and he has the gap a lot closer between some of the other backs in the draft and Genty.
Mm-hmm.
And then I asked him about Saquon, and he goes, "No, Saquon was." So if Joe,
but Saquon ain't in this draft. He's not in this draft,
right?
So it's a different situation. But look, I don't think it's going to happen. But I had to bring it up. I had to bring because with running backs, it's if they don't, let's just say for example, Travion Henderson in the second round.
That's not bad.
That's Chad, not bad.
Right? I said that on one of my podcasts. I said I would not mind that kid's a home run hitter.
Yeah,
Chad, I would not mind that one bit. But at 3, you have to understand the Giants fan base, Chad. Believe me when I'm telling you, Papa's going to argue. He'll tell you this: the Giants fan base would go ballistic.
Well, I think John Mara would go ballistic because it's like, wait a second, we didn't want to pay this guy who wanted to be here and was our most popular player, and now we're going to turn around the next year and take a running back number 3 overall.
Yeah.
But it would defy logic.
This is why the NFL draft is great, because this kind of stuff happens regularly. And like, again, Arthur Blank gave Kirk Cousins $180 million and they draft a guy in the top 10. I mean, this happened all the time. And so it's fun to think about these possibilities, whether or not they happen. It's just great. Yeah.
Chad, listen, brother, I agree with you, man. It's fun to think about stuff. And Genty's a dynamic talent. Don't get me wrong. But believe me and Papa are around this fan base. We're in this area. They would try to burn the building down if they went running back at 3. And then they didn't take Abdul or even Shedeur.
I'll text Bob when it happens. I'll text Bob. I'll let him. Look, and there are teams that have Genty as a top 3 guy. I mean, this is not.
I'm sure there is.
And it's funny, like you hear some of the things about Abdul Carter not being a great teammate. Kind of the noise that happens this time of draft, and you don't know if teams are going to take that seriously or not. But it's something interesting to think about.
Oh no!
Well, listen. From what I've been told, Ashton Genty checks every box in every interview he went to, as far as what you would want. Because I did a draft, and I'm not gonna reveal any information that Joe Shane would be upset about. But I did something with Joe Shane, John Mara, and Phil Simms today. And it was for the Giant sponsors, and we had Harry Carson was there, Carl Banks, Jesse Armstead, Akeem Nick, Sean O'Hara, Otis Anderson were sitting at each table, and we were on the thing. And character is a big issue right now. Jay Glazer put a tweet out. He said it's not just injury red flags, and it's not background red flags. It's love of football.
Yeah.
And Joe Shane told this story today as part of the player evaluation that I found was really interesting. And he said, the other thing that we now have to look at is a player's ability to be able to fight through adversity. He said, because this is the first group of players now that we're drafting that if they don't like their situation in college, they enter a transfer portal and they go somewhere else. There's no transfer portal in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So how does this player who now he's been to 3 universities, he's gone from here to there because he didn't like it. Whereas back in the day, they didn't have to worry about this stuff. You were stuck. And if you transfer, you had to red shirt. Now these guys are all moving and they're getting paid as they're moving. He said, we have to try to identify players that what are you going to do when it gets tough? Because you may get drafted in the first round, or you may be a second round pick or a high third round pick, but you ain't beating out the guy who's got a family in front of you, who's a grown man who's been in the league. You can't transfer. And he said, we're trying to really understand how these players are going to handle it because they already have money in their pockets.
Yep.
And they've grown up with NIL money or some kind of money in high school right on into college. And now all of a sudden they're in a place that they've never experienced. And players of 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 20, 30 years ago, they sucked it up and they're like, all right, what do I got to do to get better? This generation now is, well, where can I transfer? Well, you can't transfer in the NFL. So that's now part of the new evaluation that these teams are grappling with.
Yeah, and I think that's certainly a case sometimes in terms of transfer and NIL. But I think there are a lot of cases where guys transfer because they were promised something and that promise did not come to fruition. Or a coaching change happens.
But just let me ask you this. Let me just ask you this.
There's a lot of reasons why guys transfer. And all I know is that if my stepson had played major college football and he had an opportunity and he, things were not working out in the one spot, I would 100% tell him to see what other opportunities are out there, just like any of us would. And this is a whole podcast on its own, but I'm just saying, like, I think there's a lot of, and he's right. I mean, absolutely correct that you have to take this into account. But this is something that I've seen teams back off players because of similar, not the same kind of situation. Like you look at a guy who transferred 3 times. Is that a red flag? Well, I tell you what, the Chiefs have made a living off of guys that other teams would not draft. And I think teams can overthink some of these things. And like Kansas City will take advantage. Pittsburgh will take advantage of these guys that fall because of that. So I think it's just, you have to be careful about it. And looking at each guy's situation a little bit differently.
Yeah. And I'm not saying the transfer part of it because guys are getting paid along the way. Think about these quarterbacks in college right now that are moving from team to team.
Yeah.
Before Brock Purdy signs his extension, and maybe the Niners say, we're not giving you $57 million. We're going to give you 44. And he says, no, they can actually just let it play out this year under his 7th round draft pick contract. He'll have made $3.94 million in his 4 years in the league. Well, we already know that Arch Manning and numerous other quarterbacks have made way more than that money.
Yeah, good for them.
So I'm not saying that they're looking at the guys that transfer as an issue. I think they're just kind of looking at when the rubber meets the road and you got drafted in the 2nd round, high 3rd or 1st, and you think you're going to waltz in as a starter and suddenly you don't win the job. How do you deal with it? Because you can't transfer.
Yeah. They're going to have to look into that. But again, I'm in favor of capitalism.
I am too.
And if someone I know had a chance to make a boatload of money, because not all these college guys are going to make it, period, regardless of what they do. And I love it. And I love it. But I totally understand, because it does change. And when these contracts started getting big 30 years ago, how many times did we have the conversation? Oh, these money contracts are so big, guys aren't going to want to work. Guys aren't going to want. They play the game because they want to play the game, and they're competitive. And 95%. Now you do have to watch for some guys that might not, and so that's completely understandable that you want to watch for that. But a lot of guys would play for significantly less than what they're getting. And I'd hate painting a broad brush saying that guys that make a bunch of money in NIL aren't going to work hard in the NFL, because that's simply not true. A lot of these guys, and if adults want to give their money to kids to come to their alma mater, that's not the kid's fault. The adults are giving them this money. So like, I think you always, and they've been doing psychological testing. They've been doing all these things for all sorts of issues that kids have, coming out of college. So it's an extension of that. And it makes a lot of sense. Any business wants to know as much about their employees, especially if they're giving them high salaries, as they can. That totally makes sense. But I think I don't want to underestimate the willingness of players to put it on the line, even if they have a big bank account.
Right. G-Men for Life wants to know. No, Dow is a cab.
Yeah,
Dow is a cab.
It's a cab. Hey, Chad, I agree with you, brother. I know Jay brought that up. Glazier brought that up today in a tweet about, hey, these teams going to have to look out for some of these kids who have made a lot of money. Do they still have the desire and all that? And I agree with you, Chad. I think that's a very, very small percentage that kids come out and say, you know what, I'm not going to work as hard. I made $3 million. I got $4 million in the bank. Nah, obviously you have to look for that. Like I said, obviously you got to look for that, but I don't think that's going to be an issue. There might be a few. Look, I remember, Chad, when Josh Rosen came out, I knew somebody that kind of knew him a little bit, and that kid was more interested in being a stockbroker than an NFL player.
Yeah.
I can tell you that right now, Chad.
Yeah.
Okay. And you see how that turned out. But those are very rare occurrences. I don't think that will be a factor, but obviously teams do have to keep an eye on that. But I think they get into training camp.
Yeah, they're investing a lot of money in these guys, so they got to do what they got to do and make sure they get the guys they want in-house.
But I'm with you, Chad. I think they get into training camp and they bust their ass, man, to try to get that starting position. I really do.
Yeah, some. This has been going on since I started in 1988 doing the pregame show. I mean, it's there are some guys you don't know, and these teams try to unearth what's inside a guy. But there's some guys that never thought they'd ever be in the NFL, let alone be a first-round pick. And for them, their ceiling was, oh, my God, I got drafted. I was the first or second or third. I never even thought I'd get this far. I'm happy. I played for Alabama. I got drafted in the third round. I don't know.
Yeah. Everybody, it's so hard. It's so hard to scout.
Read a soul.
You can't. And you don't know. Some guys mature at 22, 23. Some guys, heck, I'm 53, probably not mature enough yet for any of this. But it's just like everybody ages at different rates. Everybody, handles success and adversity differently. And they're right. They really have to research these guys to make sure they're getting the guys that they want. But again, if you look at that, like I said, a lot of teams will take advantage of guys falling in the draft because of those kind of questions. And it's just a matter of what price do you pay for a guy like that? DK Metcalf was chosen as a second round pick, how many 7 or 8 years ago. And the Seahawks just got a second round pick for him. Now they had to give something back, but like nobody wanted him when he came out for whatever reason, even though he's a very talented guy at Ole Miss. And Tyreek Hill, he got the Chiefs started, 5th-round pick for various reasons. And so it's interesting to see the successful teams are willing to pay for these guys, and it's just a matter of when, and how they do it. So it's tough. This is not easy. If there was a formula to it, um,
Right.
it's tough, and it's fun to discuss.
Absolutely.
And you can never, until the moment happens, until the moment of truth, when the guy gets drafted and whatever he's going to put in his bank account. And it's been told to me by numerous owners, oh, we did all this research on this guy. And we were worried. What happened when he got money in his pocket?
Right.
It's like he came from nothing. He came from a horrible background. Couldn't have been better. Then we studied this kid, and he came from a much better background, and he lived a middle-class life. And the minute he got money in his pocket and he was away from his parents, he went batshit crazy. Like, you don't know until it happens.
Mm-hmm.
You can guesstimate all you want. You can measure 40 times cone drills, everything else, but you cannot figure that out until it actually happens. All right, Chad, I got to ask you this question because we're running out of time. Chad, do you like to cook?
The answer is yes, but prefer not by myself. Like if I'm just sitting here, I'm not going to cook much just on my own, but I like doing it with somebody else.
All right. So if Chad, so you said this meatball sandwich, Paisans in Madison, Wisconsin, you love.
Mm-hmm.
But if Chad is going to cook for some people, what's Chad's go-to dish that you feel is like, hey, I rock this thing no matter what?
You know what? I actually do a baked rigatoni. I really like the soft cheese on top, just baking in the oven. I put mushrooms, onions. I saute the onions in advance. And green peppers if I put them in, mushrooms, black olives, all that kind of stuff. That's an easy thing that I make, and it's very good. And it's really easy for me to do. Maybe a salmon, lemon pepper salmon, something like that. Roasted Brussels sprouts. And if I'm lazy, Bob Evans mashed potatoes. I don't know, but something. Those are kind of like a couple of things that I try to make. But I'm don't do as much cooking as I should.
Right, but but your go-to, like especially in the winter because you have longer winters. Your go-to is I'm going to make a nice baked ziti. I'm going to just
That's right. That's right.
It's comfort food. It's in the oven. It's going to smell really nice.
Little garlic bread, or actually what I did last time is I made it and then I got some garlic croutons and I crushed them up, put it on top after it's baked. Oh, that was pretty good.
Now, can I show you? So obviously you like salmon. We know you like walleye. So you're not adverse to fish flavors.
Yeah, to an extent. To an extent, let's not get too fishy now.
So I want to show you. Do you want to see how to make an Italian Christmas Eve? If you're Italian and Christmas Eve, you eat aglio olio on Christmas Eve.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Do you want to know how to make it? Because it's simple. I was actually in New Jersey today hosting this event for the Giants, this power breakfast. Then I taped some TV shows, and I jumped on a flight. I flew back to Florida, and I still had time to make this.
Wow.
You want to watch how to make the aglio olio?
Sure.
All right, Lindsay, let's roll it.
Lindsay, roll.
Christmas Eve. Well, brightened up.
I eat pretty good.
A little bit of lemon. So I finally sliced some garlic, not Paul Sorvino with a razor blade. Half a shallot. I've got my jarred anchovies. I'll probably use like 4 or 5 of these. Fresh crushed red pepper. I chopped some parsley. Got my Lucchini olive oil. Can't go wrong with that. Of course, the Rumo pasta. And we're going to finish it off with a little dough. Mangia. Because we got the shallots in, now we're going to take some of these anchovies and we're going to just lay it in, and we want to emulsify these to the point where they don't exist. You won't see them. They're going to literally disintegrate.
Yeah, you got to disintegrate the anchovies.
Shallots. They're going to disintegrate. I showed you the dish.
Yeah, you have
No,
to.
I've eaten
That's a
half of
must.
it at this point.
If I see an anchovy, I'm out.
Huh, you're not.
And let that aroma go and start building.
That's a little salty for me. Yeah, I'm with you.
This incredible smell.
Right. But really, it just incorporates into the sauce.
That in.
And
Yeah.
I got it right here, Chad.
Kinda just
You
let
couldn't
that
find
go.
an anchovy in here if you were
Yeah.
Inspector Clouseau. Now, depending on your heat, you can go a little hotter. I went a little heavy-handed with the heat.
Biz, as you can see, these anchovies are starting to completely disintegrate. So now I'm going to take a little lemon zest. I'm going to just zest this lemon in here.
Just brings a little brightness. My mom doesn't use the
Add
lemon
a little
zest.
brightness.
I put a
Get
little.
splatter. Now I don't want any of this garlic to burn. So my pasta's been in for about half the time. I'm going to get some pasta water. I'm going to put this in right now.
Can you follow, Biz? I know you're not making any of this, but your wife will use.
I know,
this
but my
recipe.
wife is stealing your recipes.
Right there.
So I have to.
Chad, Biz's wife is like constantly stealing the recipe every week.
Yeah.
Whatever I
And
make.
she loves, and she absolutely loves aioli.
It's
As I
not.
say,
It's not
I go.
stealing if you're offering it up.
Right.
Very true, Chad. Thank you, Chad.
Yeah.
Just let that go for a little
So, Chad, is this even remotely catching your attention?
You know what?
bit.
It looks
Toss it in
fantastic.
here for a little bit.
So when you come to Madison this summer, we'll buy the stuff. You can make it for me. How about that?
All right, sure. I'd love to.
Yeah.
We'll do a live Mangia Cast from Chad's house.
Look at the
Like
finished
my
product.
croutons there, right? Huh?
Woo!
A little of the sauce from in the pan.
Oh, wait
Problem
till
is
she
the
sees this
pasta-
agiogia. Woo!
The pasta soaks up the
This
sauce.
pasta's going to soak up the sauce really.
I think I'm repeating myself.
I know.
Garlic.
Chad, have you ever been on a podcast like this before?
I have not, but it is interesting. Look, I watch. I just
Excellent.
watched Food Network with my girlfriend, and we watch this kind of stuff. So I'm going. I'm with you.
You know what I'm gonna. You know what? Because you're a guest, as a parting gift for guests on the Mangia Cast, our producer Lindsay, who's amazing, she has all these clips of me cooking all these different dishes, and we've made. How many dishes have we made now? The chicken
Oh.
parm, the
Yeah,
chicken
made a lot.
piccata. We've done all these dishes. I'm
Pizza.
gonna have homemade pizza. I made 3 pizzas last week. I'm gonna have Lindsay put together all the cooking things, and as a
Send it,
gift for
Chad.
being on the show, I'm gonna send you all the
Oh.
recipes.
That sounds fantastic.
Send it Chad's way, Pop.
Absolutely.
Chad, we appreciate you coming on the program. Chin chin.
Yep.
Again, to
Chin.
all of our get that Sprite up there. To
Take
all
care,
of our
gentlemen.
viewers, subscribe, go to Believe Shop, and order yourself a Mangia Cast wine glass. Chad, thank you.
Chad, great stuff.
Thanks,
man.
guys.
You know
Great
I've been a
stuff.
big fan of yours for a long time.
I appreciate you.
Chad,
Thank you.
who's Mr. Irrelevant? Who's Mr. Irrelevant this year? Come on.
Eugene Asante, the linebacker from Auburn, goes to Kansas City, and my second choice is Wyatt Eckler, safety from Wyoming, Austin Eckler's brother.
I was going to say, is
So
that Austin's
those-
brother? Okay, I didn't know that.
So
Okay.
those two guys are my picks.
Chad, you're the
Chad.
man, brother. You're the man.
Dude,
Take
love you.
Thank you again,
Big
brother.
fan.
Thank-
Chad
That
Reuter.
guy.
Go to
That
NFL.com.
guy. Woo.
Listen, he's got a 7-round mock. I think I was doing the show on Sirius with Ross Tucker when Ross was still working with us, and I he might have brought it to my attention, or I stumbled upon. I was like, dude, you know, because Mike Mayock had his draft, and Daniel Jeremiah had his, and Charles Davis had his, and everybody had their mock drafts, and then there was this guy with a 4-round mock draft. And then it was a 5-round mock draft. And all of a sudden it was a 7-round mock draft. I'm like, God damn, like, who does this? But he said to us, he's already starting to stack players for next year.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how the hell he does it, Bob. He's a whiz, I tell you, man. Because I wouldn't even have the patience to last 3 rounds, more or less 7. And the supplement picks he puts. I mean, how the hell you do that? That's amazing.
Listen, go to NFL.com. I don't work for the NFL Network anymore. Haven't worked with them for the years, but I'm going to plug them anyway. Go to NFL.com. Look at Chad Reuter's 7-round mock draft. He's got trades in there.
I know. Amazing.
What do you think about what Shane said today at this breakfast about this?
I wasn't there, but
no, but what I said it just now about how this is a new generation of athlete.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Because listen, we had Phil Simms drafted in 79. How do you deal with the media? How do you deal with the expectations as a first-round pick? Bing, 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 bing. He's like, all I ever wanted to do was be a professional athlete. I just fought through it. And then Otis Anderson, who the Giants had told him they were going to draft him, and then they drafted Phil. He went with the next pick to Arizona. Sean O'Hara, who didn't get drafted. Carl Banks originally didn't even get invited to the Combine or the Senior Bowl or anything. But he went and played on Christmas Day in the blue-gray game in Mobile, and then everybody took notice. But these guys, Harry Carson, South Carolina State defensive lineman, they didn't have an option. Look, you got kids, I got kids. They're growing up in a different environment. So I think this player evaluation thing of, it used to be they didn't have to worry about, hey, we're drafting you in the first round. Come in and compete. We're drafting you in the second round. Come and compete. The player would say, I'm going to come in and compete. The modern athlete with the NIL is like, whoa. I mean, look at the kid at Tennessee. The modern athlete's now like, well, no, you told me I was going to be the starter. Don't tell me I'm not good enough, because if I'm not good enough, I'm going to go transfer somewhere else. Screw you. Well, it's a different athlete that they're drafting.
I understand, Bob. I'm not really concerned about it. And I know you have to be in today's, because they have
got to be
a
part
lot
of
of these,
your equation now.
Right. It has to be part of your evaluation now, because a lot of these kids are coming in the NFL and they got 5 million, 10 million in the bank. I understand that.
It's not really what's in the bank. It's the entitled era that
I think that ends.
Entitled era.
See, Bob, I think once they get in an NFL building, okay, and a guy like Dexter Lawrence walks by you, a guy like Chris Jones is in the building, that entitlement, you walk in, you say, well, I'm going to be the, and then you see a guy that's going to the Hall of Fame who's busted his ass every Pratt. I think that goes out the window. I really do. I don't think that's going to be much of an issue. Now, I'm not saying it isn't going to be a few cases where a kid comes in and goes, hey.
My question is, in today's athlete, today's kid coming out of college that grew up now in an everybody gets a trophy era and can't even handle being said, you're not good enough, or you need to do better, hurt their feelings. You have athletes now coming through that same thing that you have to do a deep dive as far as who's going to crumble. Who do we think is going to crumble? Because we see it not just in sports. We're seeing it in life. It's like, well, what do you mean?
Yeah.
I got this grades and I did this and I was this and that. What do you mean I don't have this? Well, yeah. Well, you're not good enough. And if you want to get better, work harder.
How do you tell that until they're in the building?
You can't. I guess you're trying to do a process of elimination of as many characteristic profiles as you can find to say, like, he will. Like the stories Banks told today and Harry Carson told today.
Different, though.
Akeem Nicks, O'Hara, of course, even Phil Simms. Because Giants fans hated Phil Simms.
Oh, absolutely.
Hated him.
Absolutely.
Now, there was no social media. There was none of that stuff. There were newspapers, and he was under heavy criticism. but he didn't pick up his phone every 4 seconds and look at people ripping him.
Mm-hmm.
The next day newspaper ripped him. There wasn't even sports talk radio at his time.
No.
So he can insulate himself and grind. And then you don't have all the people part of your hanger-on team that are listening to everything and then playing a bad game of telephone. These kids they got a real challenge. I feel for them in a lot of ways.
Oh, it's a tough era. Oh, no question. It's very tough. Like you said, you have kids, Bob. I have kids. This is a very difficult time to grow up in with the social media and everything. But getting back to what you were talking about, look, when they visit these kids at the combine, or the 30 visits in the building and all that stuff, how do you really determine that? Of course, even when you bring it up to them, listen, you might have been a 3-year starter at the university of whatever. But if we select you, you might not be starting. You might be getting 10 snaps a game. And the kid's going to be like, well, I'm going to work my butt off and all that stuff. He's going to say the right things. You know that. But how do you determine, right? I mean, how does it, until they get him to build, until he's in training camp, until he's not playing 50 snaps, 60 snaps on the first Sunday in the fall or in September, you're not going to really know, in my opinion. So that's going to be a very difficult, that's a big, tough part of the process, man. I understand what Shane was talking about. And every GM, is saying this, man. Like, well, this is a different type of athlete now, But to me, I still think that's a very, very small percentage problem-wise with these athletes. I think in this sport still, even if the kid has that entitlement, hey, I went to 2 different schools. I didn't like this. I went here. I played here. I got this money. Blah, blah, blah. I think still, you walk in an NFL building and you see these veterans, guys with kids, guys you might be playing next to that's going to Hall of Fame. This guy, I think that kind of will leave the building.
Yeah, no, I listen again. I hope I'm not coming across the wrong way as far as I encourage all these kids to transfer if they want to transfer.
Oh, so do
get
I.
paid. These schools are making billions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's changed the whole landscape. There's like 2 conferences left. Eventually there'll be 1 super conference. They've ruined the romance of the sport, but it's a big business. Yep. And let's face it, at the end of the day, college football funds all the athletic programs at every school.
Absolutely.
Even on the lower levels, football funds things.
Football funds everything. Yep.
So here's my deal. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with kids transferring. It's just interesting. It's a newer generation, though, of kids that aren't used to being told, you're not that good, or you need to work harder, you need to be better, because you can't. Again, you can't. There's no transfer portal in the NFL. Let's see,
THAZ, Semi-Thaz, something like that.
Semi-Thaz. I was 18. I met men who taught me how to grow. Boot camp. Yeah, 100%. And that's when you have a good locker room in the NFL. When you have a good locker room in the NFL, some of these things take care of themselves. All right, Amber 7 has a question. Or has a comment. If they pass on Shedeur, they better be right.
Yeah.
If they pass on Shedeur or Jackson Dart, they better be right. Because last year, they passed on quarterbacks to take a wide receiver. And some of these quarterbacks look like they're going to be pretty good from last year that they passed on.
Yeah, and one we still haven't even seen yet. And one we haven't seen yet who might be real good, J.J. McCarthy. So
Charlie Weiss's guy.
Look, Michael Penix showed some promise last year, and you're right. They better be right. Curiosity, Bob. If Shedeur's there at 21, does Pittsburgh take him?
Who?
Shedeur.
If I don't know,
If he makes it to 21, does the Steelers take him?
I don't know.
I'm asking your
I really-
opinion. I'm not
Well,
asking you what you know. I'm asking your
Is
opinion.
Jackson Dart off the board?
Yeah, Dart goes. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Because
Dart goes to the Saints.
I honestly believe that Jackson Dart will be the second quarterback drafted in this draft. And you feel the same way.
I feel the same way. Yes.
Phil Simms feels the same way.
I have him going to the Saints. I'm sticking with it.
Charlie Weiss feels the same way. There's a lot of people that I respect that believe that Jackson Dart will be the second quarterback taken. Yeah, I kind of think so. Did you? I don't know how much you put into betting lines, but the betting odds are that I guess this morning it was Shedeur was they had it at like pick 8.5, meaning 9. And by the afternoon, they had his betting line as the favorite would be to be picked somewhere in the 20s. Always follow the money, right? That's what Italians do.
How about if Jalen Milroe goes in the first round?
I don't know if you saw that.
What if he goes to the Steelers at 21?
I don't know if you saw the Believe in Giants podcast, but we had Charles Davis on. He talked about Jalen Milroe. He goes, Jalen Milroe is Anthony Richardson.
That's
He's
Charles'
the
opinion.
same. He goes, he's the same player. He goes, all the same question marks about Jalen Milroe are what everybody had about Anthony Richardson. He said the big exception is Jalen Milroe played way more games collegiately. And where Jalen Milroe is projected to be drafted is he's going to go to a team and sit, as opposed to Anthony Richardson, who went to a team who took him 4th overall and then started playing him right away.
Mm.
He goes, they literally have the same everything when you evaluate them. He goes, but Jalen Milroe is probably going to be more successful because he's not going to go to the second round. He's going to go to a team with a veteran quarterback. He's going to get a chance to learn and grow. I said it on my Sirius show, on my Monday show after the draft. I said, I guarantee you 3 years from now, the Indianapolis Colts will be looking for a new quarterback.
And that's what it looks like they're heading. That's what it looks like they're
Can't
heading.
take a guy who had 13 starts. All these teams
Yeah.
are looking for quarterbacks that have 50 starts.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll
I got to
see,
show
man.
you something. Lindsay's got something posted.
Go ahead.
She's got to show me something.
It's pretty interesting.
She found something on Instagram.
Lindsay never stops.
Holy
Oh,
crap.
what is that?
So this is an Instagram post from Joe Shane's son, Carson Shane.
Is that confirmed? Is that Joe Shane's son? For sure?
According to Lindsay, it is.
Because I see a couple of N's there at the end, and this is X, so. And I'm not quite sure Joe would have his son put that up there, but that's interesting.
Well, his son was on Hard Knocks last year, and he said, dude, Jaden Daniel.
Yeah, I know. Well, he does. Let's see. I'm looking at Carson Shane here. He goes to Franklin Lakes. Yeah, that's with Joe. That's with Joe Don Bosco Prep. Okay. No.
He likes Jackson Dart. He liked Jaden Daniels last year.
Unless that's an old tweet. But we'll see.
Listen,
Have
at the
some
end
fun.
of the day, we had Charlie Weiss on. We had Charlie Weiss on. Again, I know everybody says he's biased because his son is the OC. I talked to Phil Simms today for a while about him. He's run a pro offense. As Phil said, he's played in the SEC and had success. everybody that you talk to about Dart is he's a leader. He's a guy that you're just gonna. And Lindsay's saying all Giants accounts are sharing this. So anyway, Jackson Dart, Jackson Dart.
Well, that's who Joe's kid likes.
Well, he liked Jaden Daniels last year too.
Exactly.
And Phil's been spot on. Charlie's been spot on. Who knows? You know what the best part about this is? We're gonna find out tomorrow night. Tomorrow night at this time, we will know who the third pick was. We will know if they draft move up. Listen, if Jackson Dart does not go to the New Orleans Saints at 9, let's think they take a position player.
Good.
I hope the Giants jump Pittsburgh. I don't care if they give up next year's first round draft pick because you're going to use that pick next year on a quarterback anyway. Go get Jackson Dart if you love him. If you love him.
It all depends if they love him. Yeah, a lot of things coming out of the building. It all
Joe
depends.
Shane's kid does.
Well, that
Did
we
you
know.
text Joe? You got to text Joe right now.
I'm going to text
You gotta
him
ask
right
him.
now.
You got to ask him what's up with this.
I'm going to text Joe right now. I'm
It'll
going
be
to tell him.
interesting to see. It's going to be interesting to see where Shedeur goes. Dude, you know what? I feel bad for Shedeur, and there's going to be people that are watching this like, what are you? Shut up, you idiot. Why are you feeling bad for Shedeur? I don't know Shedeur. Never met him. No Dion. Love him. Did you see that hit piece on Shedeur Sanders on X today?
Bob, I'm so sick and tired of the hit pieces on Shedeur Sanders.
Like some coach said off the record, worst in-person interview ever, arrogant, entitled. I don't know.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
All I know is this. The car service guy that picked me up from the airport a few weeks ago had picked up Shedeur. He said he couldn't have been nicer.
Bob, I'm so sick and tired of the hit pieces of Shedeur
There's
Sanders.
no way Shedeur went into any facility and big-timed anybody. He's been coached by his father and his people. They know Dion's smarter than attack. He knows the game. You think he's going to tell his son to not, hey, when you go in there, whether you believe it or not, here's what you need. Here's how you need to act. I would do the same thing with my kids. I don't care how much you think you know. In these meetings, you need to act a certain way. And I guarantee you, Shedeur Sanders did not do what was said in that report.
Bob, I don't believe that for one iota. Like you said, Dion is one smart dude. Okay. Dion also has one personality. He likes his show. And then Dion has another personality behind the scenes. So
I've told on this podcast, you know my love affair for Dion, having worked with him.
right. Yeah. I mean, Bob, so many people said when they got to know Dion, either worked with him or knew him personally, whatever it was, said that's not the Dion. The Dion you see a lot on TV is not the Dion, behind the scenes. It's a different guy. And there's no way Dion would advise his kid anything remotely close to what I read today. I'm sorry.
I'm going to give you.
Is the
I'm going to
kid
give you an. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Finish.
I was going to say,
No,
is the
finish.
kid confident in his ability? Yeah. Is he coming in a building saying, I'm the best guy, I'm the best quarterback, I'm doing all? I don't believe that one. Is he a bad interview? Is he an arrogant kid to coming across as arrogant to GMs or whoever's interview? Don't believe that one bit. Sorry, don't believe it.
Hey, there might be little tells in the questions and answers that people would say, he's saying all the right things, but if we're reading between the lines, maybe. I'm going to give you an inverted Dion analogy. Because again, I love Dion. I worked with him in NFL Network. I've told this on the air a million times before. We did the last game ever in the old Texas Stadium on NFL Network together. Me, Dion, and Marshall Falk. I got to know Dion. He's a good dude. Here's my upside down apple pie example. Bill Belichick. there is a perception of Bill Belichick that he puts out there. Now he softened them. Let's go Bill Belichick before MangaCast and
Yeah.
all this other stuff. Tweeting, Instagramming. Let's go Bill Belichick head coach.
All right.
And hoodie. Short answers. I've known Bill Belichick since 1988 when I first started doing pre and post game with the Giants. He used to live in Chatham. In fact, when I moved to Chatham, he was gone. Mike Nolan, who then became the defensive coordinator of the Giants, actually bought Belichick's house. It's a whole other side to Belichick that he chooses to not show anybody. It's funny, witty, can talk about a million other different topics. So don't let the Dion image cloud you into thinking that's who Dion is as the person. Just like the Belichick, it's a whole other side to him. Now everybody's found out about the other side of Belichick in the last year.
Right. Sure. Everybody saw his sense of humor. Very funny guy, from what I understand, as you know personally.
Are you ready to wrap it up?
Yeah, are you looking forward to tomorrow? I mean, where you watching it? What's the story? What
Well,
are you making?
I'm working a
Are
golf
you going to be
tournament.
stuffing your face? Are you working a golf
I'm working
tournament?
the Mitsubishi Electric Classic TPC Sugarloaf, Greg Norman design. PGA Tour champions. We got the CEO and everything. But I will be jumping on whatever giant platform it is, I guess BBK or whatever, for an instant reaction. Now, are you and Jerry on the Giant Insider Newspaper podcast? Are you doing a live thing tomorrow night?
Jerry is doing a live stream.
What are you doing?
I am in the media room covering from there. And as you know, when the third round
You call in to Jerry?
I might call. I don't know. I'm going to call in or what we're going to do yet. But, it gets a little busy there after the pick is made. And then we get the phone call to the draft pick. And he gets on the phone.
It's made. But
he gets on the phone with us.
The Giants are picking 3. They're not trading back. They're not trading the 9. So I'm just doing the math here. Shane, Dable, react to the pick. Get Abdul Carter, whoever they pick on the blower. You guys talk to him. So pick 10, 11. The Giants are not trading up to there if there's a quarterback still available.
No.
So jump up with Jerry then.
Well, I could jump in. I could jump in with Jerry then. And he's going to be anxiously waiting to see when we kind of throw it out to Shane about, hey, can we get out of here? Can we go home? Or what's the story? And Joe, I have a feeling, is going to say, I wouldn't leave. It's first round. Always stick around. Like last year, he was like,
I think he's going to say, hey, do what you got to do.
You think so? Yeah, I don't know. But Joe, I don't know. But I can see Gettleman saying that, but Joe, I don't know. I'm not quite sure, I can see Joe giving a little smirk or a little bit like, you might want to stick around. You never know what could happen.
Well,
something like that.
Here's what'll happen. They draft 3, be swept up in the pick, whatever happens. Next pick will be made for Patriots. Next pick will be made. Now Shane and Dave will become available to the media, so you'll interview them, however they're going to do it. Then Dion's going to tell you, or Maddie, who's going to be in Green Bay, is going to say, player X, Abdul Carter, whoever they pick. Let's just say Abdul Carter. He's going to be jumping on this Zoom. So now you're at pick 10 or 11.
Yeah.
Right?
Jackson thought might be gone.
That's my point. Joe Shane, like if Jackson Dart goes to New Orleans, Joe Shane may go home. If Shedeur Sanders goes earlier and New Orleans doesn't take Jackson Dart, at that point in time, Joe may say, fasten your seatbelt, homie. Or, hey, you may not want to stray too far. Hey, how far do you guys live from here? You may
Yeah.
not want to stray too far. And you live
Yeah.
in Pennsylvania, so.
Oh, I just think he'll Pennsylvania. I just think he'll kind of leave it out there, like, hey, you might want to stick around. You never know what's going to happen in the first round. That's what I think Joe will go tomorrow.
By the way, my son Will the Thrill turns 26 on Saturday. So I got him, I got him for a birthday gift.
Mangia Cast?
Oh, round of golf at Crystal Springs.
Oh, that's nice.
Saturday. It's not far from you. Oh, I should
Crystal
have made
Springs.
you the fourth.
Where's no? I got it.
It's a little north, near Sparta, up that way.
Oh, up a Sparta. Okay.
You just jump on 287.
Well, I mean,
Dodge
I
Deer as
just
you're
want to let you
driving.
know our birthdays are like, our birthdays are close to one another. I'm a September 12th guy. I know you're like the 15th or the 9th or something around there. I know you're around there somewhere in September. So I expect, a sort of like something along those lines in September. I
right.
mean,
Maybe we'll go out
MangiaCast-
for a little manja.
MangiaCast
do a
partner.
manja. By the way,
my,
Lindsay
my
reminded me, Chad had the Raiders taking Shedeur.
yeah, how about that? That's something you have not heard.
But then
recently.
he had Jackson Dart going to New Orleans anyway.
Yes.
I say watch for the Jets. I think the Jets are going to grab a quarterback.
I tell you what, Bob, you talk about keeping it close to the vest. A lot of teams like to talk about keeping it close to the vest, and maybe some teams isn't as close to the
Woody
vest.
took his son's phones away.
Right. So
his kid messed up the whole Jahmyr Gibbs thing. The Jets wanted Jahmyr Gibbs, and they got jumped when the Lions heard.
Well, I hope he did take his kids' phones. I'm sure he did. But I tell you what, Aaron Glenn, they're keeping it close to the vest, boy. They're doing a hell of a job, I have to admit. Unjet-like, right? Unjets-like. New culture over there in Florham Park there, Papa. New culture. What did you think about, by the way, what did you think about Aaron Glenn on the whole Aaron Rodgers situation?
Truth always falls somewhere in the middle.
Aaron was very upset. He even canceled a round of golf with his boy, Devontae.
My grandfather told me that. My father always said that. Truth always falls somewhere in the middle.
It's true.
So are you buying the whole Rodgers story? No, truth falls somewhere in the middle. I'm sure he's right. I'm sure maybe. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see
what's going to surprise you tomorrow? What's going to surprise you tomorrow? What would shock you tomorrow?
I made this prediction.
Go ahead.
In fact, I had my producer on my Sirius show tomorrow book a Jet guest. Brian Costello's coming on. I think the Jets are going to be sneaky in this thing. I know they need a tight end and and all this other stuff. They also don't have a quarterback. They got no quarterback.
Yeah, I can't see them sitting there saying we're good with Justin Fields.
No, it was a kick the tires. We hope we get lucky. But now that we're sitting here and now that we're sitting here and you're looking at all this other stuff, like, are you really thinking you're going to compete in your division with Justin Fields? With Josh Allen and Drake May with new weapons and a new coach and all that other stuff? Like, Justin Fields is the answer.
Bob, it all comes down to how they have these kids graded out. And we'll find that out tomorrow. I try to tell people, everybody wants the answers yesterday and last week. We are not in their war rooms, their draft rooms. We don't know how they have these kids graded out. Would that shock me tomorrow? No. The Jets went quarterback. Would that shock me? Absolutely not.
All right, let's wrap it up. Lindsay's got to go to bed.
Lindsay, thank you.
She doesn't really sleep, our producer.
She gets 2
Lindsay
hours, maybe.
Kugler.
Yeah.
I actually texted her like 15 minutes before the show, and I'm like, hey, I logged in early. She's like, I'm just finishing eating. I'm like, well, what am I? You actually eat?
I'm gonna wake up in the middle of the night when I just text her like 2:30 in the morning. Lindsay, I'm thinking about this. What do you think about this? Just see if she responds like right away.
She's editing right now, she says. Editing the pasta dish. Lindsay. Biz.
Yo, enjoy, brother. Enjoy the
Chin
draft.
Chin. Look
Chin,
at these
my friend.
glasses. Look
I
at
mean,
these
come on.
glasses. Want to
How
buy
the hell-
one?
How the hell could you not want one of those?
Just go to Believe Shop.
Are you kidding me?
Or-
Come on.
What's the web? What? I don't have the website. There you go. Shop.believe.com. You could buy your Chin Chin Mangia Cast wine glass and then
Could
the
you
Believe
not?
in Giants mug with me and Banks' picture on it.
There you
Tell
go.
a friend to tell a friend.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Biz. Tomorrow night we'll be texting like maniacs. You'll be in the press room. You'll be hitting
Yeah.
Salzburg over the side of the head.
Yeah. Waking him up. Okay, wake
Seeing
up.
what-
Here comes a pick.
Seeing what Pat Leonard could stir up. Tom Rock with some completely off the wall, non sequitur humor, which is brilliant. The guy is brilliant. Schwartz being Mr. Practical. That's how it goes.
I
Paul's
like Paul.
No, I can
He's-
see that. But, here's the other side.
What is the
I
other
see both
side?
ways to go.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? That's a good point, Biz. That's a good point.
Sweetheart of a man.
Paul, I like
All right.
Paul. Paul's one of my favorites. So, yeah, listen, enjoy tomorrow, brother.
Chin
I'll be
Chin.
texting you. Chin, enjoy the rest of the night. Finish stuffing your face. Mangia Cast. Make sure you get one of those babies.
Oh, get your wife that recipe.
I'll be stealing it. Don't worry about it. She
That's
loves
gonna be
Agiogia.
listen. That's gonna
Loves
be our.
Agiogia.
This is what I'm gonna do. This is our gift to our guests. Lindsay's gonna just compile recipe videos and send them to the guests,
That's a good idea.
and maybe if Believe can spring a few bucks, send them a glass too.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I like it. Lindsay
right,
be all over
listen,
that. Lindsay be all over that.
Subscribe, YouTube channel. We'll be back next week to look at this whole scenario. And
Yeah.
Biz, a lot of fun.
A lot of fun, my friend. Talk to you later. I'll
Manja.
talk to you in a little bit. Manja.
And Tommy DeVito wants to come on the show.
Yeah, a lot of great guests lined up,
Tommy
including
wants
the,
to come on. I talked to him
including
in
the
the
North
cafeteria.
Paisan. Tommy
I talked to him
DeVito,
in the
baby.
cafeteria for a while. He's like, that'd be great.
Good.
He wants to
Great
learn
to
how
have
to make his
Tommy
own.
on.
He wants to learn how to make his own burrata. When I showed him the fresh mutts thing,
Well, wait till you show me your chicken palm because that's Tommy's favorite.
I love it. Chin chin.
Talk soon.
Believe in
Be
Giants.
good. Enjoy the draft.